In this video, traders, we're going to look at how can you find the next Apple, Google, or Facebook. Stay tuned. Hey guys, warm welcome to you. So, we would all like to find the next Apple, the next Google, the next Facebook, right? Massive returns on your investment, companies that are changing the world forever. But it's easier said than done. But there are a few things that we can look at, and there are a few things that we have to do to even give ourselves a slight chance of being involved with these companies. Let's look at some. By the way, really want to hear what you guys' thoughts are on this. Comments in the comment section below as always. If you're subscribed to the channel, I appreciate your support. Thank you. Okay, so how do you find these next big stocks? The thing to look for is the big trends, i.e. what's a big shift in consumer sentiment? And these are kind of both together actually, so I might as well talk about this at the same time. Changes in the way we do things. All of the big companies like Google, like Apple, like Facebook, like Amazon, the companies that have made big returns for you if you got involved early on, have changed the way that consumers on a large scale do something. Even Netflix, for example, you know, the way that we search for things, the way that we shop, the way that we have our friend network on Facebook, you know, even if we go as far as to look at Netflix, for example, the way we consume video content, that's something that ultimately, once it gets traction, that's when these guys start making money. But of course, you don't know that at the beginning. It's an idea. It's like, hey, I think that we should start streaming things. We can do this, we can do that. Hey, I think this is a great way of socially networking people. And let's not forget, we also have failures out there. Snapchat at the moment, at the time of this video, if you've done it on, if you bought an IPO and you looked at the stock now, you wouldn't be very happy. Same with Twitter, same with GoPro. The idea is that even though that these companies say they're going to revolutionize something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work, of course. But the starting point for us to find, if our sole goal here is to find the next massive return stock, that's what we've got to look for. Something that wants to do big things. We're not looking at companies that are going to maybe make a little bit of money, be profitable. That's another strategy. It doesn't mean you can't make money. Of course, there's plenty of money to be made then. That's where the majority of money is made, on these companies that are making good money. But to make these massive returns, we have to look for something that's almost an all or nothing. If the whole of the world or a big chunk of the population adopts it, bang, it's going to make a lot of money. If it doesn't, it's a flop. And that's how you've got to look at it. And then you've got to say, okay, well, we are changing the way we consume content. We're changing the way that we do things during the day. Mobile, artificial intelligence, drones, all this kind of stuff we have to take into account. Think, well, is that going to be a bigger shift in the next 5-10 years? If so, this company may well be positioned nicely for that growth. Okay, the other thing to watch out for is the low barrier to entry warning. Example would be GoPro. A GoPro IPO'd, big hype, and they had a great brand and they were doing really well, and they came out with cameras. But of course, ultimately, they were just building cameras, right? And I know in hindsight, we can put this together and make this argument, but ultimately, yes, the brand is very powerful and still has a lot of weight, but a camera is a component of a few things put together into a box. That's it. There's no barrier to entry. Any Chinese firm, any firm with a reasonable amount of capital and knowledge can replicate what GoPro have done and slightly change it and still have something out there that's way cheaper. So that was ultimately why GoPro didn't do as well at the moment in time anyway, why it didn't do as well as people expected. The IPO ramped up and then just fell off a cliff as they started to lose market share. The excitement of the whole thing died up. Whereas you look at something like Facebook, for example, they did deliver on what they promised. It was a bit of a rocky ride for IPO investors, I grant you that, but ultimately they did deliver. They're taking a lot of ad revenue coming in, a lot of people using it. Google, the same thing. They just really revolutionized the way people search for things. They weren't the first search engine out there, just did it right, and they just changed the model, and it worked. And obviously the investors in the IPOs of those are very happy. So watch out for the low barrier to entry. It may be packaged as being, oh, it's a simple thing and this and that, but ultimately, if you start getting traction with it, a company starts getting traction, you're going to be fighting against competitors. So you want that high barrier to entry, or you want something that if they've got a big leap and people are using it, they're not going to shift. For example, Google's a perfect example, right? It's going to take a lot for you to shift search engines now. Even so, some of the things aren't so great about Google. The fact that you use it every day, it becomes a habit. It's going to need a lot for you to move over to another search engine. And that's what the kind of head start mentality is as well. Unlike a GoPro where you're constantly buying something else, the next one, to shift over isn't that easy, or is that easy, should I say. Now, if you look at something like Apple, same kind of thing. They've done really, really well, revolutionized the way that we communicate, revolutionized mobile phones, brought the tablet to us basically, just got us into the ecosphere of iTunes and apps and all this. And now, of course, Android, Samsung are chomping at their heels, and actually they're over, if you look at a global perspective, they're bigger than Apple in terms of smartphone sales, but Apple's still making a lot of money because they've got a lot of people embedded into it. So anyway, rather than going down each individual stock example, let's keep it broad and let's look at how we can find those next ones. So low barrier to entry, watch out for that one. You have to take early risk. Again, if our sole goal is to find these next big boys, we've got to commit to early risk. We can't wait until the story is great because we're not going to get the returns. Can we still make money? Can we still invest in great stocks? Of course we can. But if our sole objective is to make those multiple 100,000% returns, then we need to be taking early risk. And that means listening to all the bad stuff and good stuff and taking a punt and saying, you know what, I think they can do it. Here we go. And then the other thing which I've added in here, really, we'll move to this last one in a second because I think that's very, very important, but good management. If you look at something like Tesla, for example, Elon Musk, I know there's some people out there who don't like his management style, but he does have a cult following. He does seem to get stuff done. And that is one of the reasons why Tesla is valued as it is. I would argue that another management in there or another CEO in there, another leader in there, wouldn't have the gravitas and the pull for investors that Elon Musk does. So having a good management team. But one of the most important things, guys, are these two things here, taking the early risk. And this final one is using the venture capital approach of, hey, if I invest in 10 companies and 9 of them go bust, but one of them absolutely rockets, I've made money. Yes, it's got to go more than 10 times, of course, but that's the loose idea, is that if you're investing in 10 IPOs and 9 of them go to zero, and even the bad IPOs we discussed earlier in the video, like Snapchat, GoPro, they've not gone to zero yet. GoPro's not been so great, but some of those have not gone to zero. They've just not given you a return on your investment. So even if you have 9 duds, but you have 1 or 2 that absolutely rocket, over long term, that's when the money is made. So being prepared to take that early risk, not going all in on one, unless of course you fancy it, but of course being prepared for that not to work out, but maybe splitting up over, having a theme, having ideas, splitting up over 4, 5, 6 to 10, recognizing they're not all going to work. But if you want to get that one that absolutely rockets to the stratosphere, you've got to do that. And the final thing I forgot to mention, guys, is something that perhaps we as sort of vulnerable traders from a human perspective, is that when they start rolling, if you want the big returns, you've got to stick with it for an X year plan. You can't say, well, I've doubled my money, now I'm going to take it out, because that's what we probably would want to do. Like, listen, we've doubled, tripled our money very quickly, let's pull it out. But if you want to be on board when that stock or that company becomes the top of the tree and everyone's using it, you are talking much more than doubling or tripling. You're talking a significant return. If that's your sole goal, you've got to be kind of strict enough to not take it out when you start to see those early gains. So anyway, guys, there's some ideas there, how we find the next Apple, Google, Facebook, one of those big stocks. Different investment strategy, different way of approaching things, but I think these are some good rules and some good ideas to look at moving forward. Take care, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.